Welcome back. Week 21. Oh my gosh, I'm going to get right into this. So, it's Monday. I got back yesterday at, well, it wasn't super late, but 8:30, and I just felt tired. So, I went to bed. Despite knowing it was Sunday and that I needed to should have gotten a video out. I thought about it and went, tomorrow's Memorial Day. It's a day off on a Monday, so it's basically the weekend still. And I decided to do it today. And oh my gosh, am I, in hindsight, glad I did. But before that, I was riding my bike home from the board game store, and I was planning. I was gonna get home at like not 10:30, like 9:30 ish. And I thought, okay, do I do this immediately? Let it upload while I have dinner? Do I have dinner? Do this afterwards? I split the difference. I did the first half, recorded the gameplay first, then had dinner, and then I'm doing this. And oh my gosh, was that quite the call? Because funny enough, and this is the only reason this would have happened, things would have just played out differently. Last week was debatably going to be the week of fire because there was a bonfire and all of that. This is the week of fire because I just set my kitchen on fire 15 minutes ago. Not something I'm happy about, quite ashamed, but I have a gas stove, so there was an open fire, and I was cooking my pasta and using my oven mitt to handle the hot surfaces as one does. And I looked and I said, okay, this pasta needs about 1, maybe 2 more minutes in the water boiling before it's ready. So I set everything down and I walked away. And then a couple minutes later, well, not a couple minutes later, like 30 seconds later, I was starting to smell, and I went, it's smelling kind of 4th of July, which is not correct because it's the middle of May. And I walked back in, and the oven mitt I bought a month ago is half on fire. So I had to grab that and quickly put it out in the sink. Thankfully, there's no damage. No one got hurt. Sprinklers didn't go off. Nothing bad like that. But I did just happen to do all of the right things to set my kitchen on fire just in time to record and talk about this. Yeah, not one of my greatest moments. But I did voluntarily. I've told like 10 people in 2 different group chats so far because I don't know. It's gonna be a semi-funny story for the future. Anyways, last week I wrote down cat. Yes, I'm getting a cat. I was supposed to. When did I record last week's? I didn't. Right now. When did I record last week's in reference to last Thursday? So the quick setup. I don't really have a theme for this week. The fire was just kind of fun. I filled out a application to get a cat. And I was told under no uncertain circumstances, at least 7 times, you are not obligated to this cat. You're not obligated to any cat. This is just saying you can adopt and you can change your mind at any time later. So Wednesday night, they told me it was going to take over a week. 4 days later, Wednesday night, I get a call and they say, your cat is ready. And I go, what do you mean my cat is ready? I don't have a cat. That's crazy. And they said, yeah, the one you applied for. And I was thinking, oh yeah, I did have to put down a name. So I just said, oh yeah, sure, but I'm not like committed to this cat or anything, right? And they sounded very confused, and they said, what do you mean you're not committed to it? And over the phone, taken aback, I was in the middle of something. I went, you know what? I'll stop by tomorrow and we'll talk about it. So I was now under the assumption that I needed to get prepared to have a cat the next night. Which, I was expecting at least another couple days, if not a full week. Thankfully, I got there, and the person I was talking to on the phone, there was just a miscommunication, because immediately she was like, oh, yeah, you have this one. Did you still want to look around? Are you ready for that? And, it was a miscommunication. But I looked around and didn't see any other ones I want, so I said, sure, let's keep going with this one. However, I'm going to be gone this weekend. Is it cool to leave it alone for 18 hours or something? And they said, well, you probably shouldn't right after you adopt it. And then next Thursday is the main person. We have one person who does adoptions. So the one person who's doing the adoptions is going to a concert. So they won't be able to be there. Now I'm getting it on Saturday. So ended up still being like the full 2 weeks that I thought I was going to have. And having that extra time in between has made me more certain that this is something I've wanted. I was really freaked out a little bit when it was almost like thrust upon me. But now that it's becoming more my decision and I have time to think it over, yes, this is going to be, I think this is going to be a good decision. I saw Spamalot over the weekend. Not a lot to say about that, but as far as a recap goes, week cap. Anyways, as far as a recap goes, that was pretty good. Hung out with one of my friends over the weekend and saw Spam up with his family. Yeah, not too bad. I also bought a 3DS off of his brother, and oh boy, was that fun! Was that nice? Um, as I've mentioned, I've gotten sort of back into a renaissance, golden age for myself of Pokemon, especially the older games. Now that I've played through uh, Scarlet and Violet, and I'm more or less caught up with all the new stuff. I basically accidentally stumbled across a video on being able to mod 3DSs, and that sparked my interest to get a second one mainly just meant for modding. And so my friend's brother was like, "Yeah, emulation's good enough. I don't really plan to use it," and he hasn't used it for years. So now I have it, and I spent took me about 30 minutes to mod today, about an hour to download everything off my computer, and then I spent like 5 hours up, downloading all onto my DS. But I own, and I own all of these physically. These are all games that I own on cartridge, but now I can, not have to swap cartridges and carry them all around. I have every Pokemon game for the DS and 3DS, from Diamond, Pearl, all the way up to the last ones were Ultra Sun, Ultra Moon. I think the remakes came after or before. Yeah, the remakes came before that. But yeah, so that's what I spent most of my day doing. So now I have, a portable library of all of them, and I don't need to carry around a big case. I just carry around the one device. So that's awesome. That's going to be what I do, what I just kind of keep on me whenever I go anywhere, so that if I have some time here or there, if I have 20 minutes I need to kill, whip it out, play for 20 minutes. I think it's going to be much healthier than, scrolling Instagram or Facebook Marketplace or all the other things I do. I think the only other thing here, because I only have 10 minutes today, the other thing I want to mention is I dream every single night, and it's very vivid. I used to not. In high school, I didn't dream at all. I would just fall asleep and then wake up. Now I still fall asleep, obviously, and I wake up multiple times. I don't get a full, fall asleep and then wake up in the morning and I'm done, sort of rest. But every time I sleep, even if it's just for a couple minutes, I have dreams, and they've gotten more and more realistic, to the point where before, if I did certain things, if I blinked in my dream consciously, or if I told myself this is a dream or whatnot, it would jolt me awake. Now, I could do that or be like, this is a dream, and my subconscious and my brain and, the dream itself will reinforce, no, this isn't, and I don't wake up, and I stay asleep. And that's thrown me into, a panic a couple times when I'm having, nightmares or whatnot. And so it's like an arms race of me having to get better at knowing when something is a dream versus being able to actually like wake up from it. And so last night, actually it's funny, the last 2 nights I had that sort of experience. 2 nights ago, I woke up in pain because of my dream. I woke up with my right arm like feeling like it was burning. Obviously nothing had happened, but in the dream, things were happening, and it kind of tricked my brain into that. Last night, things were happening, and I went, oh, this is definitely a dream. And, again, it doubled down, and I was not able to wake myself up. But I went, no, I to see the circumstances of this is not possible, what was happening. And I forced myself awake. And fun fact, I don't know if it works like this for everyone, but when I forced myself awake, I guess my brain and body wasn't ready, because I ended up having sleep paralysis, where I started to hallucinate and hear sounds and feel things that weren't there, as well as I'm awake and I can kind of hazily see what's in front of me. I can feel my body, but I did not have motor controls. Couldn't move my arms, couldn't move my legs, couldn't turn around. And it's not the first time it's happened. It happens to me, semi-frequently. I'd say 6 to 10 times a year, but sometimes it could be as frequent as like once a month. So I'm used to it. But yeah, it's quite a crazy feeling. And now knowing that, I know that the more you dream and the more you lucid dream, the more likely it's to happen, because you're likely to randomly wake up. So knowing that that's the sort of situation I'm in, where I have to somehow force myself awake, and that's going to give me a mild case of sleep paralysis, it is unfortunate. But I think it's something worth noting to see that, hey, maybe in 6 months, maybe in a year, 2 years, that goes away, or maybe it gets worse, and having it only once a month or once every 2 months is actually a blessing. I wrote down a couple other things. Work, thinking about life differently. Those I'll probably just tack on next week because they're just random thoughts in general. But yeah, everything's going pretty well, and I've managed to talk for the 10 minutes. So I hope you have a great week, and I will see you hopefully with not a burnt down household next time.